It is wonderful to welcome Dr. Krish Kandiah. Krish is the chair of the Adoption Special Guardianship Leadership Board. He's a consultant, social entrepreneur, and author, and a previous lecturer and tutor of mine. Krish, it's great to see you today. How are you doing?
Matt, it's great to see you too, and it's wonderful to see you flourishing. Can't believe it's been so long since you were a student of mine.
It's great to see you, Krish. Look, we're so grateful to you for your session today. Leadership lessons. I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you again, Krish. I'll see you soon.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to join the Stronger Network today, and I'm going to be talking about leadership, but particularly leadership and entrepreneurship, how those two things fit together. And I want to share that because of my experience, I guess, in the last 15 months. I've been through a bit of a journey. Maybe you have too. Lockdown has changed us in many ways. But I faced a big change in my life. I'd been leading a charity that I founded called Home for Good. It had a very simple vision. We wanted to see a home for every child in the UK that needed one that was currently in the foster care system, whether that was through adoption or through longer term foster care. And the opportunity came up, as Matt mentioned, to chair a government board. And it was the Adoption and Special Guardianship Leadership Board. And this would be a 1 day a week job, but it would allow me to have opportunity to shape and influence the whole government policy as it relates to adoption, and also for children that are going to be living with their aunties or grandparents because they can no longer live with their birth families. And there's a big tussle, you know, how do you go forward? Do you say yes to this opportunity, which seems to have more influence, more opportunity to bring change, or do you stick with the thing that you founded? And a lot of people talk about founder syndrome, that you get kind of too involved or too attached to something that you helped develop. And so it was a big wrestle. Anyway, I was really convicted by the book of Daniel. And the book of Daniel talks about this need, I guess, for Christians in public life, you know, people like Joseph or Esther, that sometimes we have an opportunity to bless outside of the church, to make as Jeremiah talks it, seeking the welfare of the city that God has kind of sent us to. And I felt convicted about that. So off I went to take on this role. But it's 1 day a week, and I've got 6 children. We've got a mortgage. What am I going to do for the other 4 days? How is this going to kind of work out? Sadly, government boards don't pay enough that you only need to work 1 day a week. You still need to find kind of full-time employment. So I was scratching around and trying to seek God and figure out what's going on. And again, this trying to learn from the Bible's patterns, and you know, Abraham's a huge figure, isn't he? That he steps out into the unknown, not having any clue where God is going to lead him, but God, by his grace, kind of comes in. And again, that's a really inspiring story. We need to step out in faith and trust God. And then 2 things happened. One was I became aware of this large movement of people from Hong Kong to the UK. I don't know if you've noticed it. Something called the British National Overseas Passport route has opened up. And this meant that around 130,000 people from Hong Kong are expected to arrive in the UK before January 31st this year. So that's 130,000 people moving to the UK, changing continents. And that's the largest planned migration to the UK from outside of Europe in a generation. And the previous time we had this kind of size of migration was the Windrush generation. And I don't know about you, but when I hear the word Windrush, the shiver goes down my spine. I'm really scared, because I think, you know, we all know what a terrible job the nation of Britain did, but also on top of that, what a terrible job the church did when it came to making people feel welcome from the Caribbean. And sadly, you've probably heard many stories. I have firsthand heard these stories of people that came to the UK, they came to our churches, and they thought, hold on, I go to an Anglican church or a Baptist church or a Catholic church in the Caribbean. I'm going to go home to the mother church. And they turned up at church, and you know, they wore their Sunday best, and they sat in a pew, and someone told them, oh, please don't sit there, you know, that's my seat. And then they were kind of moved along, and you know, they were delighted to be in the church service. And then at the end, the vicar would come and say, oh, it's lovely that you are here, but you're making the other parishioners feel awkward just by your presence. Wouldn't you be better off worshiping God down the road in a church which has more people like you? In other words, a black church. And that feeling of expulsion and exclusion lives long in the memory of many people that came to the UK. So the church did a terrible job, but the nation did a terrible job too. We know 50 years on, there are still court cases, still compensation claims for the gross injustices that happened to people just because they were black and arriving on that in that Windrush migration. So I thought, look, something is wrong here. But if we're going to see the next largest migration, this time from Hong Kong, we need to do things differently. And so I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if the church was at the front of the queue to welcome people from Hong Kong? And so we tried to kind of make that happen. We launched something called UK HK. About 500 churches got involved very quickly. Government took notice of what we were doing. We had opportunities to welcome thousands of Hong Kongers to the country. We've seen churches triple in size. One church had 50 people in it before lockdown, and after lockdown eased and you were able to meet face to face again, 200 people had turned up, and this time 150 new arrivals from Hong Kong in that one church, and that's happening across the UK. We've had opportunity to introduce new arrivals from Hong Kong to the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, to the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. And it's been phenomenal. The church really has made a difference in this. And, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was still doing the job I was doing before. And so God kind of opened some doors. And then because we were able to, help so many people from Hong Kong, when the Afghan refugee crisis kicked off just before August, they asked the church, you've done an amazing job with Hong Kongers. Could you help us now as these people from Afghanistan are arriving? And of course we can. The church is phenomenal at responding in a crisis, and it's been absolutely fantastic to see that taking place. And just reflecting back, since August, we've raised over £1 million. We've seen 2,000 children and their families supported by churches with basic equipment they need, with new clothes and new pushchairs and prams so they can get around. It's been absolutely amazing. And again, the government has taken notice and they're excited about what the church is able to do here. So I want to share with you some principles that I've been learning through those experiences of what we might call leadership and entrepreneurship. And hopefully it will help you in your context as well. And, this is fresh. This is stuff I've just wrestled with in the last 15 months or so. So I hope it's of use. I want to say that I guess I've discovered there's a difference between leadership and management. So leadership is often about seeing a different future. Amidst the chaos and the confusion, a leader can see a different way of moving forward, while a manager is often happier trying to build structures and systems to make things normal. Now, I want you to hear this. The church and most organizations need both leaders and managers. If you don't have both, things get really crazy. So leaders, because they're always seeing those new futures, those new opportunities, if they're the only people in charge of an organization or a church, they can quickly exhaust the congregation. People don't know whether they're coming or going. Organizations can't flourish because people just haven't got enough predictability in their lives to kind of work out how to deliver. What does good look like? What sustainability look like? So you really need leaders and managers, but you mustn't confuse those two roles. You see, if a leader is the only person in charge, we get that exhaustion. But if the manager is the only person in charge, we don't grab and seize opportunities. In fact, opportunity is often seen as a threat to normality. because leaders are disruptive. They're going to change the way things go, change the way things happen, while managers are the opposite. They don't want to bring disruption. They want to bring calm and structure. And those two things, when they're working well together, are brilliant. Some people describe it as rocket fuel. But when they're not working together, that's when life gets complicated. And in this moment of history, because of the pandemic, because of COVID, we really do need leaders of vision, who can see a different future, who can seize opportunity, who are not afraid of disruption. We need those leaders, and we need them to work closely with managers to make sure that we get the stability. But we really need leaders right now. In fact, there's an amazing guy I've come to know recently, the last 3 years, a guy called Andy Crouch. And he was reflecting on the pandemic, and everyone said, oh, this is just a winter and it will soon be over. And he said, no, this isn't a winter. This isn't a blizzard. This is an ice age. This is a whole new way that we're going to have to think about how we do life and business and church and everything else. And he described just at the beginning of lockdown in a very prescient way. He said, every organization is a startup now. In other words, our normal way of doing things has been thrown out. We need to be thinking as entrepreneurs and innovators, because every organization is a startup now. And to be honest, I'm super encouraged that around the country and around the world, the church really did innovate. I have a funny story for you. That the week before lockdown, I had done a live stream from a little church that we were kind of helping out. And I'd done it for an evening service. We were trying to reach out to our community. We'd done a survey of the biggest questions that people were facing. And one of them was, hasn't science killed God? So I decided to live stream the Sunday evening service, just to preach, which was talking about, science and Christianity. And we live streamed it. And I got an email from the church elders saying, what have you done? You can't live stream that breaks all sorts of our traditions, and we shouldn't be doing this. And I had to go and make a fulsome apology to the elders and to the church meeting. And then the week after, lockdown happens and we're not going to be able to meet again. And so to their credit, the elders and the deacons and the church meeting phone me up and say, actually, what you did, live streaming our service, we need to do it. Can you help us? And so many churches innovated, didn't they? They kind of found a way to get the message out, to carry on meeting, to carry on supporting people. And so the church is good at innovation in the right circumstances, but we need more of that. Many people think that now lockdown is ceasing, or hopefully Omicron is going to play itself out. We'll just go back to normal. But actually, my prayer is that this entrepreneurship, this innovation, this new way of doing church would linger. In fact, this new mindset would continue, that our imaginations would be like springs that have been pulled beyond their elastic limit, and therefore they won't go back to normal. They keep on thinking in fresh and innovative ways, because our nation needs it. Our vulnerable children need it in things like fostering and adoption, my world. Our homeless population need it. Our poor need it. Our God calls us to seek the flourishing of those around us. And in order to do that, we're going to need to think creatively and innovatively. And therefore, if you are an entrepreneur, if you're a visionary, if you're a leader, I want to encourage you to keep going, but make sure you've built around you the systems and structures that you need to make it sustainable. And if you are a leader who considers themselves more of a manager, that you like the calm and the normal, that is brilliant. We need you. But maybe there's ways that you can reach out to those members of your congregation or your organization who can bring that spark, that vision, that innovation, and recognizing it's not your gift set is great. It's fantastic, because we all have our different skills and gifts, but recognizing that you might need to rely on others to bring that can be really healthy for you, your church, or your organization. So I hope that's helpful. I believe Matt's been watching the chat, see if there's any questions. There's lots more we could talk about. But Matt, do you want to see if you want to do some Q&A? Oh, I can't hear you.
Fabulous stuff,
there you
Krish. Really, really good to have you share on this stuff. And you will have had all sorts of different perspectives, and you know, being a church leader, as I have been over the last number of years, you know, it's very localized, and you've got such a national perspective, Christian. It's fabulous just to hear some of your perspectives and your insights from there. And I just wondered, in terms of, you know, how can we? There's always that tension, isn't there, when you've got what the immediate needs of today, you know, and somehow we need to keep our eye on the bigger picture. And I just wondered, what would you say right now is some of the broader picture, the bigger picture that we can encourage ourselves with?
Yeah. Well, you're right, Matt. And there's something wonderful about trying to keep a foot in both worlds. So, you know, I really believe in the local church. In fact, the local church has been absolutely amazing. Like, think about these Afghan refugees. I got a call from the Home Office, and they said, "Oh, we got 3,500 Afghan refugees moving into hotels tomorrow in 30 different locations. Is there anything you could do?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure we could step up support. Wish you'd given us a bit more notice." And they said, "Well, where are you guys?" And I said, "Well, we're everywhere. You know, we're the church. We're in every town, we're in every city, we're in every village. There are congregations, there are communities of people passionate about God and passionate about serving their neighbor. And these Muslim refugees from Afghanistan, they're our neighbors. And so we're here to help you." So, you know, without the local church, we can't do anything nationally. But with the national and the local working together, we have something really powerful that the government doesn't have. In fact, no other organization has. At one stage in the Afghan refugee crisis, the church was helping more people than the British Red Cross. I mean, it's just incredible, you know, absolutely fantastic. I would say some of the big things coming. There is a major challenge going in children's social care. So we've all seen these terrible stories about Arthur Labinio Hughes, that little toddler that was killed, and Star Johnson. I think there's going to be more cases like come up soon. And the issue has been that children really weren't seen during the pandemic. And so that abuse was happening. Children normally be spotted as being in trouble at school or maybe at the hospital, but people just weren't face to face. So I've got a meeting coming up with the Department for Education, who are in charge of child welfare, to say a few years ago, there was this diagram that showed Victoria Climbier, that beautiful little girl who was just abused over many years. And there were 65, I think it was, different people that she had contact with, some professionals, some neighbors, and no one reported the abuse. And so our vision is, what would it look like if we flip that? Because churches are the front line, you know, when it comes to vulnerable people. Wouldn't it be incredible if at the food bank or your nursery or your toddler group or your school or your parenting course or the CAP centre, we've got eyes on these families, and we're there to support them and to signpost all the things that we've got that could help them to thrive and flourish. But we're working really closely with local authorities, so that when we spot things, we can report children that really need our assistance and help. You know, our God is so passionate about vulnerable children. He is a father to the fatherless and a protector of widows and orphans. On our watch, these terrible atrocities have happened to children in our nation, and I really want to reverse that. So I think that's one big area. I think there's a huge challenge around poverty coming. You know how the fuel bills are going through the roof. So if you haven't got a CAP centre working in your church, please get involved or find another way to get involved with that area. Same with food banks and trust or trust. They're going to be sadly more needed than ever. So I think we've got a whole wave of destitution and real economic challenge coming. And again, the church is going to be absolutely crucial in the response there.
Krish, thank you for your time today, and God bless you in all you're doing. Thank you for encouraging us today. And if you want to follow Krish, do find him on social media, and be aware of what Krish is doing and the conversations he's having. It's really, really inspiring. So, Dr. Krish Kandiah, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, Matt. God bless you all. See you later.
Bye.